A fortune teller once declared that my marriage into the Sinclair family would usher in a century of peace for them. Because of that prophecy, I was granted the privilege of choosing my husband from among them. I chose the eldest of the three Sinclair brothers, Adrian. On our wedding night, however, he didn't come to me as a husband. Instead, he handed me over to his two younger brothers, a cruel offering for their amusement. They took turns berating me, their words like whips, cursing me over and over. "You took the place of Evelyn," they snarled, their faces twisted with hatred. "She's the one who should be the true lady of this family. We only recognize her." It was only then that I understood the depth of their delusion. All three brothers were hopelessly in love with their adopted sister. As my consciousness started to fade from their brutal treatment, I saw the head of the Sinclair family, their father, rush in to save me. I died in his arms, and just before the darkness consumed me completely, I heard his voice, choked with tears and apology. "The Sinclair family's trap was set by your own uncle," he cried. "If there's a next life, promise me you'll stay far away from us." And then, impossibly, there was. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the very day the head of the Sinclair family came to visit my home. "Clara, would you be willing to come with me to the Sinclair residence?" Marcus Sinclair asked. His features were strong and mature, making him seem around 40 years old, though a closer look revealed a man who could have easily passed for his early 30s. "It's all right if you say no," he added gently. "This is just what fate has laid out for us." In my memories from that other life, this was the same man who had wept like a heartbroken child over my body. Time had rewound by 6 months. Back then, the Sinclairs had sought me out based on the guidance of a spiritual master who claimed that if I refused to marry into their family, they would face a terrible disaster. In my previous life, I had agreed without a second thought, driven by a naive sense of goodwill. Now, with the vivid memory of my tragic death replaying in my mind, all I could manage was a bitter smile, unsure of what to say. Seeing my hesitation, Marcus let out a soft sigh. "I apologize. I was being too forward," he said, his voice kind. "It's understandable that you wouldn't want this. Please, just pretend I was never here. I wish you all the best." He stood up to leave, but on instinct, I reached out and grabbed his wrist. "Uncle," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I'll marry into the Sinclair family, but I have one condition. I don't want to build any kind of relationship with your three sons." Marcus froze for a moment, his expression unreadable. He tried to reason with me. "You can't take matters of the heart so lightly. You should consider them seriously. Choosing a partner is a decision that will affect your entire life." I shook my head, my resolve hardening. "I've already made up my mind. If I'm going to marry into the Sinclairs, I will marry the best man in the family." I met his gaze directly. "I want to marry you, Marcus Sinclair." He was the patriarch of the great Sinclair family. 10 years ago, he had lost his wife in a tragic accident and had never remarried. After everything I had endured, I could see with perfect clarity that he was the only decent man among them, 10 times the man his sons would ever be. He was stunned by my bold declaration. "Don't joke like that," he said, looking flustered. "I'm far too old for you." I raised a finger and gently pressed it against his lips, silencing him. "I won't marry anyone else. The decision is yours." After a moment of intense internal struggle, visible in the clenching of his jaw, Marcus finally agreed for the sake of his family's future. He swore a solemn oath right there on the spot. "If this is the only choice, then I, Marcus Sinclair, will never betray you. Let this be my vow. The inheritance of the Sinclair family will belong to you, Clara. I will marry you right away. If I ever break this promise, may I be struck by lightning and live as a beast." I was satisfied with his response, but I added one more condition. "Before we get married, you can't tell anyone about our engagement. Your three sons owe me a great debt from my last life. I want them to repay it twice over." 2 days later, I stepped into the sprawling Sinclair family estate. Adrian Sinclair stood there, a cigar held casually between his fingers, smoke curling into the air as he raised an eyebrow at me. A flicker of malice shone in his eyes, a stark contrast to the gentle expression he had worn when we first met in my previous life. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I was jolted awake by the thick, acrid smell of smoke. When I opened my eyes, I saw a large hole burned into the curtains, and hungry flames were crawling across the carpet, making their way toward my bed. In my past life, there had been a fire just like this one. I had been so terrified I could do nothing but clutch my pillow and cry, until Marcus rushed in and carried me out, his arms getting badly burned in the process. But this time, I was ready. I calmly grabbed the fire extinguisher I had prepared in advance and put out the flames. When the rest of the Sinclair family came rushing in, a flash of surprise crossed Adrian's face. He clearly hadn't expected me to escape the fire so easily. He deliberately leaned in close, lowering his voice to a menacing whisper. "You got lucky this time. But Clara, if you dare choose me as your husband, I swear I'll kill you." The only woman I will ever acknowledge as the true Mrs. Sinclair is Evelyn. His reaction was so different from the mask of a gentle, kind man he had worn in my past life. That was why I had fallen for his act. That was why I had married him. And now, all I wanted was to wipe that smug look off his face. The sharp crack of my hand across his cheek echoed through the hall, shocking everyone present. I sneered at him. "Adrian Sinclair, if you have something to say it to my face. What's with the arson? Not afraid of wetting the bed at night? Though, honestly, maybe you should. It might help you get a better look at yourself in the reflection. Who in the world told you I wanted to marry you? Take that little manipulative shrew Evelyn of yours and get as far away from me as possible." "You dared to hit me," Adrian barked, his tone filled with disbelief, as if I were some lowly servant who had forgotten her place. Just then, a young woman came running down the stairs. It was Evelyn. "You filthy commoner!" she screamed, pointing a finger at me. "How dare you act out in the Sinclair house? My brother is the eldest son of this family. Who do you think you are to put your hands on him?" I looked at them coldly, then turned my gaze to the other two brothers standing nearby. "What about you two? Do you have anything to say?" As expected, Evelyn stepped forward again, her voice trembling with false sincerity. "Clara, can't we just talk things out calmly? You just moved in and you've already started hitting people. If Dad finds out—" I cut her off, my voice laced with annoyance. "If Dad finds out, he'll probably praise me for hitting him." "All right, next." I raised an eyebrow at the youngest brother, Noel Sinclair. He hesitated, then tried to play the role of mediator. "Since we're all going to be family now, maybe we should try to get along. Clara, could you perhaps apologize to my brother?" "An apology?" I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Why should I? So it's perfectly fine for you all to set my room on fire, but it's not acceptable for me to slap someone? Adrian, did you really think I was some soft target you could just push around?" I let my gaze sweep over all of them. "Listen up. Whoever opens their mouth next, I'll pick them as my husband and make their life a living hell with daily abuse. Go ahead. Come on, say something." The four of them froze, stunned into silence. Just then, we heard the sound of hurried footsteps. Marcus Sinclair appeared, his shirt buttoned incorrectly and a faint red bruise on his wrist from where he must have bumped it. "What happened?" he asked, his eyes scanning the scene. "The door to her room was locked from the outside. I had to find the key, that's why it took me so long." It was obvious Adrian had been the one to lock it. His son's expression turned awkward as I stared directly at him. "Guilty," Adrian quickly whined to Marcus. "Dad, she probably set the fire herself. We just rushed in to help put it out, but she turned around and attacked me. She's crazy. How could a woman like that be worthy of marrying into the Sinclair family?" Marcus looked from his son to me. Without giving me a chance to respond, he lifted his hand and slapped Adrian hard across the face. "Do you think it's up to you to decide who is worthy of this family?" he said coldly. "I know better than anyone what kind of people my sons are. If anything like this ever happens again, all of you can get the hell out of this house." Adrian clutched his cheek, his eyes wide with disbelief. I seized the moment and said calmly, "Uncle, it's all right. Kids who act out just need a little discipline. From now on, I'll take over their mother's job and teach them some manners." That line landed like a bomb in the ears of the three brothers and Evelyn, a blatant provocation. But to Marcus, since I was going to be his wife, the remark was perfectly acceptable. He nodded gently. "Thank you, Clara. You've been through a lot. I'll have someone move you to another room so you can rest." The looks those four gave me could have sliced me into pieces, but I wasn't worried. This was just the beginning. The next morning, my secret ally, Maria, came to see me quietly. She was an old servant in the estate who had been kind to me in my past life, though she was eventually kicked out by Evelyn under some fabricated excuse. This time, I made sure to win her over as soon as I arrived, having Marcus double her salary and promising to arrange a good job for her son. "Miss Clara," she said, nervously wringing her hands. "Miss Evelyn and the three young masters were talking in the study. They're planning to find someone, to kidnap you." Her voice trailed off, trembling, unable to finish the sentence. But I already understood what was happening. Just like in my past life, they wanted to ruin my reputation, so I would be deemed unworthy of marrying into the Sinclair family. The only difference was that last time they waited until after the wedding. This time they were acting early. I gave a cold laugh, a sharp glint flashing in my eyes. "Whose idea was it?" "It was Miss Evelyn," Maria said, her voice barely a whisper. "She also said she'd record everything and send it to the media. That way, you'd be tainted." The corner of my mouth curled into a smile. That confirmed it. Everything that had happened to me in my past life had been orchestrated by Evelyn, too. But in this life, I was the one writing the script. I had been so blind before, I truly thought of Evelyn as my little sister. She had deliberately slit the pocket of my bathrobe so that when I delivered a file to Adrian, the robe slipped and exposed me. She had poured a chemical into my shoes that made my feet itch uncontrollably during a formal Sinclair family banquet, forcing me to kick them off and scratch them in public. I had chalked it all up to childish pranks. But right before the wedding, she had cut open my wedding dress and clumsily stitched it back together with uneven thread. I didn't notice until I stepped onto the stage and felt the loose seams give way. The ceremony had already started. There was no time to change. Who would have thought the sweet little girl who clung to my arm calling me Sissy Clara was actually the one plotting to drag me into hell? She even recruited her friends as bridesmaids. As I walked down the aisle toward Adrian, one of them accidentally stepped on my gown. The unstable dress burst open on the spot in front of every single guest. Within the hour, the video went viral. The camera angle was perfect, filmed from exactly where Evelyn had been standing. By the time I saw through her schemes, it was too late. That same night, the three Sinclair brothers tied me to the bed. Evelyn was there too, and she was more brutal than any of them. She leaned in close to my ear to whisper, "Sissy Clara, the reason they hate you isn't because they love me more. It's because I keep telling them what a filthy slut you are. Enjoy it. The Sinclair family is a home to me, but to you, it will always be hell." That night, I pleaded. I explained. I begged them to listen, but none of them did. To them, Evelyn was still their sweet, innocent little sister, and I was just a gold-digging whore who wanted their family's wealth. Now, having come back from death and hearing that Evelyn had concocted another plan to have me kidnapped, I suddenly realized that even their so-called loyalty to her was a sham. So this time, I wouldn't show mercy to anyone. The next day, Evelyn came to find me with a bright smile. "Sissy Clara, the boys were so out of line yesterday. I'm really sorry on their behalf. How about we go check out that new KTV that just opened? Just us girls, I'll bring the boys too." I returned her smile, making it even sweeter than hers. "Of course, little sis. How could I say no when you ask?" I let her lead me into the private van she had arranged. She handed me a can of lemon tea. It was drugged. I knew that. The moment I arrived at the KTV, I would lose consciousness. Evelyn had already hired thugs to be there, waiting to humiliate me. Then, the three brothers would conveniently arrive to rescue me and paint me as some promiscuous slut. Even though I knew everything she had planned, I drank the tea right in front of her. My body reacted quickly. "Sissy Clara, are you okay?" she asked with fake concern, pretending to help me into the private room to lie down. From the corner of my eye, I saw two menacing men in black loitering outside the door. Evelyn leaned in and whispered, "Don't kill her. Just get enough footage. Make sure the camera captures her face clearly." She paused, then added, "Oh, and you guys do have STDs, right? As long as it's not too serious, I'm not paying otherwise." Then she turned back to me with a twisted expression and hissed, "Clara, You think you can marry into the Sinclair family? You think you can be the lady of the house? I've lived with the Sinclair since I was 7. Who the hell are you? Right before I completely blacked out, an image of Marcus's sharp, rugged face flashed through my mind. This time, I was going to make sure he saw clearly what kind of disgusting creature he'd been raising as a daughter. I had already hidden my phone in my sleeve. The moment she gave me the lemon tea, I had called Marcus Sinclair and left the line open. Every vile word she said about the filming, the STDs, her cruel demands, all of it reached Marcus's ears, loud and clear. Marcus dropped everything and rushed over. Just as the two thugs started to tear open my shirt, the door to the private room was kicked wide open. Marcus stood there, a baseball bat in his hand, his eyes blazing red behind his glasses. Without a word, he slammed the bat into the back of the thug closest to me. The crack of breaking bones echoed through the room, followed by the man's agonized scream. Blood sprayed as chaos erupted. The second thug tried to run, but Marcus slammed his leg into the back of the man's knee, sending him crashing to the floor with a loud thud. "If you so much as touch her," he growled, his voice a low threat, "I'll make sure you wish you were never born." The gentle, refined Marcus Sinclair, who had spent 20 years as a model of restraint, had in that moment become the fierce, young man he used to be. He stripped off his blazer, laid it gently over me, and carried me out in his arms. Evelyn had just come back from the restroom when she saw the two thugs scrambling out, barely holding themselves upright. Hands on her hips, she shouted, "Useless trash! Can't even handle one simple—" Her words cut off when she saw Marcus carrying me in his arms. "Dad, why are you here?" she stammered. Her eyes darted to me, trying to check if I'd been violated, but all she saw was Marcus's icy, unforgiving glare. "On your knees at the ancestral hall until sunrise," he said, without even looking at her. When I woke up in the hospital, Marcus was sitting by my bedside, peeling an apple. The moment he saw my eyes open, he slammed the apple down onto the dish and snapped, "Do you have no regard for your own life? What if I'd arrived just a minute later? What if those animals? Why didn't you tell me Evelyn was bullying you?" His voice was hoarse, as if he'd been crying. I tugged gently at his sleeve and said with a soft pout, "Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me." That made him freeze. He turned his face away, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. It took him a long moment before he rasped, "I'm sorry. Uncle was wrong. It won't happen again, Clara. Please, trust me." "I do," I whispered with a nod. In my past life, he had been the only one in the Sinclair family who ever truly looked after me, but back then, I had loved the wrong person. Suddenly, the hospital room door burst open and the 3 Sinclair brothers barged in. Noel still had his headphones around his neck, clearly having just logged out of a video game. Adrian noticed the IV in my hand and his eyes flickered, but what came out of his mouth was a plea for their sister. "Dad, Evelyn's never suffered a day in her life. The ancestral hall is freezing. How can she kneel there all night?" "Did she suffer?" Marcus interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. Those 3 words sent a chill down the spines of all 3 of them. Then Marcus laughed, a cold, humorless sound. His eyes were red with fury. "So all that education you received, what was it for? You think the books you read growing up were just for show? When Evelyn plotted this kidnapping, did she ever once consider whether Clara would suffer?" "Dad, Evelyn was just—" Adrian tried to defend her, but one sharp glance from Marcus shut him up. The youngest, Noel, was the most foolish. He stepped forward and slammed his hand on the windowsill. "So what if Evelyn did something wrong? She's still part of this family. Are you seriously saying someone like her should have to kneel all night for someone like Clara?" This boy, who had once pretended to be my friend in my past life, now showed his true, vile face. Marcus stood up, his face dark, and kicked Noel hard in the knee, forcing him to the ground. "You think the Sinclair family business exists so you can abuse people?" Then he turned to me, his expression softening instantly. His next words sounded like he was asking for my approval. "Clara, I think it's about time we make our engagement public." He pulled a document from his briefcase. "Let's get one thing clear," he said, his voice firm and leaving no room for argument. "I've already decided to transfer all of the Sinclair family shares into Clara's name, effective immediately. She will be the one to choose the future heir of this family. No matter what you think, it's already done. The papers are here. You've lost your mind. Derek, the middle brother, was the first to explode. The Sinclair legacy should be passed down to your sons. Why would you give it to an outsider? Adrian's face went pitch black, as if he'd been struck by lightning. At most, I'd agree to giving some shares to Evelyn, but Clara, not a chance. Noel was the most dramatic, his voice cracking from shouting, "We're your real sons. Evelyn is your daughter. You raised her for over 10 years, but Clara, she's just some powerless girl with no background. What the hell can she possibly offer the Sinclair family?" Marcus towered over them all, taller and broader than any of his sons. He stared down at them with a gaze that felt like it had been frozen in ice. "Your mother grabbed my hand on her deathbed and begged me to raise you to be men of character. If she saw the things you've done, she'd climb out of her grave just to slap the hell out of each and every one of you." His eyes locked onto Adrian. "You set fire to Clara's room. Did it ever occur to you that she could have died?" He swept his gaze across the three of them. "I am the head of the Sinclair family. I have the right to decide who inherits it, and all of you should be ashamed. In 20 years, none of you have proven that you're capable of carrying the Sinclair family name." He turned his sharp tone toward each of them in turn. "Adrian, in high school, you scared off 3 different tutors. Every single one of them reported that you hid razor blades in your textbooks and threatened them. Derek, in college, you cornered a female classmate under her dorm and tried to throw acid on her. Thankfully, it didn't cause permanent damage, though I had to spend $8 million to shut that down. And Noel, just last year in Macau, you gambled away $300 million. I was the one who paid off your debt. Which one of you," he demanded, his voice rising, "is capable of carrying this family forward? Tell me." The brothers' faces turned paler by the second, but Adrian still wasn't convinced. "Everyone makes mistakes when they're young. What rich kid hasn't stepped out of line a little? Honestly, we've already been more well-behaved than most." Marcus shook his head in disappointment. "And that's exactly why you're not fit to manage this family's wealth. Clara is the complete opposite of you three. She never leaned on anyone, and yet she turned out better than all of you combined." The room fell into a dead silence. The 3 Sinclair brothers now realized that Marcus's decision was final. No argument would change his mind. Seeing that no one had anything more to say, Marcus continued calmly. "The wedding will be held in 1 month. Clara is marrying." Just as he was about to name himself, Adrian suddenly dropped to his knees. "I know I was wrong," he pleaded. "I'm willing to marry Clara. Everything before, I was immature. I shouldn't have followed Evelyn's lead. Clara, I promise, from now on, I'll treat you sincerely. Please marry me." The other 2 quickly caught on. Whoever married me would automatically be in line to inherit the Sinclair family fortune. Whether or not the marriage lasted didn't matter. What mattered was getting control of the estate first. Derek pushed Adrian aside and knelt down on one knee. "Clara, I've liked you for a long time. I was just misled by Evelyn, that's all." Then came Noel, the most ridiculous of the 3. God knows how, but he actually pulled out a velvet ring box from his pocket, revealing a massive diamond ring. "This was passed down from my grandmother to her future granddaughter-in-law. Look at the cut. It's just like your eyes, so beautiful. How about we fly to the Maldives tomorrow for our wedding photos?" My grandma was ahead of her time, right? I raised an eyebrow. "Where did you even get that? Is it from a bargain website?" The 3 of them were shouting over each other like vendors in a street market, frantically trying to outbid one another for my hand. It was laughable. The entire Sinclair family estate was now mine. What could they possibly offer me that I couldn't buy myself? They certainly didn't think of offering anything when they held me down on that bed and called me a whore. But now, they were lining up to become the very thing they once insulted. I rolled my eyes and finally cut them off. "All right, how about this? You want to marry me? Then, whichever one of you can make Evelyn kneel and sincerely apologize to me, I'll marry." The brothers instantly froze. Getting Evelyn to kneel and beg for forgiveness? For them, that was worse than death, but the inheritance was on the line. They couldn't walk away that easily. Before they could react, Marcus suddenly bent down, scooped me up into his arms, and strode toward the door. I let out a small yelp and instinctively wrapped my arms around his neck. What in the world was this man doing? He always seemed so serious, but the way he carried me made my whole body feel soft. Adrian frowned and tried to block him, but Marcus sidestepped effortlessly. "Dad, what are you doing?" Adrian demanded. Marcus snapped, "I'm going to make Evelyn apologize." His tone was harsh enough to scare anyone, but the arm he wrapped around my waist was gentle, careful not to let me feel uncomfortable for even a second. I buried my face in his chest, secretly laughing to myself. So that's what this was. He was jealous. He didn't want to see me getting lured away by his 3 sons. Just yesterday, he had sworn I could still choose for myself whom to marry, but the moment he saw his sons fighting over me like a bunch of bargain hunters in a grocery aisle, he lost his patience. I couldn't hold back anymore. I burst into laughter. The 3 brothers were left exchanging awkward looks behind us, unwilling to give up the inheritance, so they scrambled to follow close behind. Marcus carried me straight to the family's black SUV, setting me gently in the back seat. His fingers tapped rhythmically on the leather upholstery as the car pulled away. Halfway down the road, he suddenly looked down at me. "If they really do manage to get Evelyn to kneel, would you actually marry one of them?" I grinned, clearly enjoying his flustered tone. "Why not? Didn't you say I had the final say?" His expression darkened. "No, that's not happening." Then he pulled me into his chest and held me there, not giving me a chance to wriggle away. "Careful, you'll wrinkle your suit," I teased. Inside, I was laughing like crazy, but on the surface, I just nodded sweetly. "Okay then, Uncle Marcus, who do you think I should marry?" Just as Marcus was about to speak, the brothers' car caught up to us. Noel clung to the rolled-down window and shouted, "Sissy Clara, wait for us. We're going to make Evelyn apologize right now." Derek shot him a glare. "And what do you mean we? Speak for yourself." Adrian leaned out the window and made a heart gesture at me. "Clara, as long as you agree to marry me, I'll make sure Evelyn smashes her head bloody kneeling for forgiveness." Marcus's face was as dark as thunder. He rolled the car window up with a snap. I trembled in his arms, laughing uncontrollably. At the ancestral hall, Evelyn had already been kneeling for quite a while. Her knees were raw and bleeding, her bangs soaked with sweat and plastered to her forehead. When she saw us walk in, her eyes lit up, and she immediately crawled toward Adrian. "Adrian, you're finally here. My knees hurt so bad. Please help me beg Dad, okay?" Adrian didn't even hesitate. He slapped her across the face so hard she fell sideways onto the stone floor, clutching her cheek in disbelief. She whimpered, "Adrian, you hit me?" "Apologize to her," Adrian said coldly. "Kneel down and give her 3 loud kowtows. Say, 'Sister Clara, I was wrong.'" Evelyn looked to the other 2 brothers for help, only to see Derek already unbuckling his leather belt. "Didn't you hear? Apologize. While you're at it, make sure to say it was Brother Derek who made you do it." Noelle squatted down, gripped her chin, and smiled in that sweet but sinister way of his. "Aren't you great at playing the poor little princess? Go ahead, put on a show for Sister Clara, make it good, and I'll still spoil you. Oh, and remember to say it was Brother Noel who told you to apologize." It was like watching some kind of absurd, over-the-top competition. As Derek raised his belt menacingly, Evelyn panicked and looked to Marcus, crying, "Dad, help me! They've gone crazy!" But Marcus only stared at her icily. "Apologize to Clara or keep kneeling for the rest of the month." That broke her. With no one left to shield her, not even the brothers who used to pamper her endlessly, Evelyn finally broke down in fear. Trembling, she crawled to my feet and knocked her head against the stone 3 times. "Sister Clara, I was wrong. Please forgive me." The moment her forehead hit the ground for the 3rd time, the 3 Sinclair brothers lunged forward like rabid dogs fighting over scraps. "I told you to apologize," Adrian shouted. "Clara, did you hear that? It was because of me." "Bullshit," Derek yelled. "It was my belt that scared her into doing it." "Liar, I grabbed her chin. Look, her drool is still on my fingers," Noel declared, holding up his hand like it was some kind of trophy. At that point, I truly wanted to ask them, isn't all of that the same damn nonsense? But I kept it in, afraid Marcus might not appreciate my taste in humor. He didn't always get the chaos of young people. Evelyn was being yanked around between them, finally realizing what was going on. All three brothers wanted to marry me, and whichever one got her to apologize first won the prize. She didn't know why, but the humiliation crushed her. Why? She screamed inside. Why should I, the treasured princess of the Sinclair family, the girl raised like royalty, lose to some random girl like Clara? Evelyn shoved them all away and glared at me, her eyes filled with a hatred so intense it felt like she wanted to skin me alive. You're loving this, aren't you? Watching them fight over you, is that what makes you happy? Whoever makes me apologize, that's who you'll marry? Then fine. I only apologized because of Marcus. If you've got any guts, marry him instead. Then she let out a manic, unhinged laugh. You're all clowns. 3 simps and 1 gold digger who wants to marry an old man. The brothers snapped. 20 years of emotional bonds shattered in a single second. They didn't lose control because of the insult to them, but because she threatened their place in the inheritance. Shut that filthy mouth, Adrian yelled. You want me to toss you outside for the dogs? You called my future wife a whore, Derek snarled. You're the real piece of trash here. The 3 of them surrounded her, their fists flying. I leaned into Marcus's arms and gave a cold smirk. Look at that. This was their so-called pure white moonlight from my past life, the girl they had all sworn to protect. And now, for the sake of profit, they were ready to beat their own sister bloody. Marcus gently patted the back of my hand. Clara, he murmured softly, do you really want to marry an old man like me? There was a raw vulnerability in his voice. I knew where it came from. That age gap between us had always been his insecurity. I looked up at him, drawing out my words with a playful smile. Well, what else would I want? I hooked my fingers around his tie, gently tugging him closer until his chest was pressed against mine. Everyone gets old, I said softly. When I'm old, I won't have the confidence to still look as young as you do right now. There's a 20-year gap between us. You're twice my age. But in 10 years, it'll only be 1.6 times. In 20, 30 years, that gap will keep shrinking. And when our hair turns white, who'll even notice the difference? Marcus let out a low chuckle, clearly moved by my warmth and sincerity. I had made up my mind. I was going to give him the last piece of reassurance he needed, something that would completely put his fears to rest. I clapped my hands toward the still wrestling group of fools behind us. Everyone, quiet down, I said, my voice ringing with authority. I have something to say. The room stilled. Since Evelyn was so eager to announce it for me, I'll make it official. The man I've chosen to marry is Marcus Sinclair. I turned to the brothers and added with a sweet smile, All right, you 3 can come line up to call me Mom now. The 3 Sinclair brothers froze for a second, then burst into laughter. Derek sneered, Clara, come on. Who's going to believe you'd say something like that? Seriously, stop messing around. Yeah, Noel added quickly, just pick one of us and let's get married already. Adrian let out a mocking snort. Nice move, playing hard to get. Too bad it doesn't work on us. As I looked at their smug, entitled expressions, my heart filled with a cold amusement. In the last life, they treated me like a toy. Now they thought they could still play me for a fool. If they didn't believe me, I'd show them something they couldn't possibly ignore. I rose up on my toes, wrapped both arms around Marcus's neck and kissed him. His eyes widened in surprise. That kiss carried all the resentment of my past life, all the resolve of this one, and all the trust I had placed in him now. Marcus's body tensed at first. Then he slowly closed his eyes and pulled me into his arms, holding me tight as he kissed me back. The room fell completely silent. That kiss was steady and sure, a public declaration to everyone present. I had chosen him, Marcus Sinclair, Adrian, Derek, Noel, even Evelyn. Every single one of them stood frozen, their eyes wide with shock. I pulled back from Marcus and looked up at him, my own eyes full of anticipation. Come on, I thought. Kiss me back again. Forget age. Forget status. Right now, I'm just a girl longing to be loved. Marcus looked down at me, his gaze so tender, it felt like it could melt stone. He stroked my hair and said with a rare reverence, "Clara, I will marry you with the grandest wedding this family has ever seen. I'll make sure everyone in the world knows that you are the woman Marcus Sinclair loves most." Then he lowered his head and kissed me again. This time, there was no hesitation, no holding back, just love, pure, unwavering love. And right in the middle of that breathtaking moment, Adrian suddenly shouted, "Enough!" His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Clara, are you reborn or something?" Both Marcus and I froze, turning to look at him. Derek and Noel also caught on, their eyes snapping toward their brother in alarm. Adrian hadn't finished his sentence, but we all understood what he meant. The atmosphere in the ancestral hall turned eerie in an instant. Derek and Noel exchanged a look, their faces pale. Evelyn, meanwhile, trembled where she knelt, her eyes full of a dawning fear. So they had all been reborn. After my death in the previous life, the entire Sinclair family had spiraled into chaos. The three brothers had turned on one another over Evelyn, their rivalry festering into bitter mistrust and backstabbing. As they fought for the family inheritance, they began plotting against Marcus, too. In the end, Marcus died tragically, and the brothers destroyed each other in the process. None of them met a peaceful end. Marcus now looked at his sons with a deep, profound sorrow in his eyes, disappointment etched into every line of his face. "You all remember everything from before," he said quietly. Adrian gave a bitter laugh. "Yeah, we remember. Don't you, Dad? You were reborn too, weren't you? If you weren't reborn, how could you suddenly be so nice to Clara?" Adrian sneered. "So, Clara, you think marrying my dad means you can take over the Sinclair family? Keep dreaming. The Sinclair legacy should stay with the Sinclair bloodline. It doesn't matter which of us brothers it is. The name stays Sinclair." The three Sinclair brothers exchanged glances, a flicker of shared cruelty flashing through their eyes. Slowly, they stepped toward Marcus and me, twisted grins spreading across their faces. Behind them, Evelyn shrieked, "Kill them! If they're gone, the Sinclair family is still ours." I looked at the four people who had once destroyed me. There was no fear in my heart, only pure, cold disgust and a burning anger. Marcus pushed me behind him, his eyes icy as he stared down his own sons. "You really want to go down this path? You think this life will be just like the last, where you could do whatever you wanted? Let me make one thing clear. So long as I'm alive, I won't let you lay a single finger on Clara." Adrian smirked with contempt. "Save your breath, old man. You died at our hands last time, too. This time, you and that bitch can die together." Honestly, the Sinclair siblings really were hopeless idiots. The moment Adrian finished his threat, I nearly burst out laughing. Did they really think Marcus, the head of the powerful Sinclair family, was standing here alone and unprepared on his own property? Did they actually plan to take us down with their bare hands? "Marcus Sinclair, you old bastard, do you seriously think—" Adrian didn't get to finish. The sound of dozens of footsteps echoed down the hallway. In the next second, more than 20 black-clad bodyguards flooded the ancestral hall, sealing it off completely. Even Auntie Wong from the kitchen arrived, casually holding a tray of freshly cut fruit as she stood in the doorway, looking around with a puzzled expression. "What's this setup supposed to be?" she asked. "Kind of edgy. Are we filming a gangster flick? Want me to slice up some watermelon for the shot?" Behind the bodyguards came 7 or 8 household staff. My ally, Maria, winked at me as she stepped forward, waving a feather duster like a weapon and aiming it squarely at Evelyn. "Let's see if this silk brat can handle a little sweep." Adrian swallowed hard, clearly rattled, but he still puffed up his chest and tried to sound threatening. "Do you know who I am? I'm the future head of the Sinclair family. When I take over, I'll triple everyone's salaries." The bodyguards remained dead silent, their faces expressionless. The staff, however, burst into giggles. Auntie Wong rolled her eyes. "Oh, give me a break. Ever since you threw my cat in the pool last month, I've been dying to slap you." I overheard Maria chatting with Aunt Zhang behind her. Unbelievable. Do they really think being the head of the family is that easy? Aunt Zhang nodded. Even my grandson has more self-awareness than these fools. The brothers' faces turned ghostly white, then flushed red with humiliation. Furious, Adrian screamed, "Fine, screw it, let's go, kill them." He charged forward, only to be tackled to the ground by two bodyguards before he could take 3 steps. His knees slammed into the stone floor and he howled in pain. Derek and Noel were at least a bit smarter. They never ran at all. Both dropped to their knees immediately and started crying their eyes out. "Dad, we were wrong. We don't want to die. Please, just let us live. We won't fight over the inheritance anymore, we swear. Just give us enough to live comfortably. We won't ask for anything else." Then came the most absurd part. Evelyn sauntered up to Marcus, swaying her hips and purring, "Daddy, I can marry you too. I'm younger than Clara, I'm prettier. I'm the one who suits you best." She actually reached out to touch Marcus's face. He slapped her hand away. Marcus's voice was as cold as steel. "I've already had people gather all the evidence of your crimes. Arson, kidnapping, intentional harm." He pulled out a thick stack of documents and flung them to the ground. "This is more than enough to keep you all in prison for life. From this day forward, you are no longer members of the Sinclair family. The doors of this house are forever closed to you. Take them away." The bodyguard stepped forward immediately, dragging all 4 of them out. Evelyn screamed as she was pulled back. "Dad, I'm the daughter you raised for over 10 years. You can't do this to me." Marcus didn't flinch. He watched them being taken away, his eyes filled not with anger, but with a deep, weary disappointment. After raising them for over a decade, what he got in return were a bunch of ungrateful wolves. But when he turned to look at me, all that coldness instantly melted into warmth. "Clara," he said gently, "no one will ever hurt you again." In that moment, I felt an indescribable rush of relief. Whether the Sinclair family deserved to fall or not, one thing was certain: its trash deserved to be taken out. A week later, Marcus and I got married, and Marcus, well, when he cut loose, he really went all in. At the wedding, he actually performed a trendy K-pop dance. The way he pulled it off had so much tension and flair, I genuinely worried a few times during those deep backbends that he might throw out his back. But nope. Turns out his lower back is still stronger than a 20-year-old's. 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. Marcus pressed his ear to my belly and stayed like that for 10 whole minutes. When he finally looked up, his expression was so serious, it felt like he was hearing divine whispers. I laughed so hard, I nearly smacked him in the face with the pregnancy test. "It's only been a few days." His ears turned red. Without a word, he picked me up and gently placed me in bed, tucking the blanket around me as if I were made of porcelain. "What do you want to eat?" he asked, his voice full of nervous energy. "I've already asked the kitchen to prepare bird's nest soup and that spicy noodle dish you mentioned last time. I'll send someone to get it now. Oh, and wait." I pressed my hand to his mouth before he could turn into a one-man parenting podcast. "Mr. Sinclair, this isn't your first time becoming a dad. Can you please calm down? You're an old pro by now." He leaned down and kissed my forehead. "That's exactly why. I want to give all the tenderness I have left in this life to you and our baby." Honestly, when it came to sweet talk, Marcus Sinclair could go toe-to-toe with any lovesick 20-something. My life felt utterly perfect. As for those 4 mutts who once made my life a living hell, they were having quite the time in prison. Maria's cousin worked as a prison guard, so she updated me daily with their latest adventures. Adrian had his steamed buns snatched by a cellmate during work detail in the prison factory. Derek tried to fake an illness by eating laundry detergent just to get sent to the infirmary. Noel started a little side hustle doing other inmates' laundry in exchange for snacks, but ended up getting caught and forced to scrub toilets for 3 days straight under the warden's watchful eye. And the best one, Evelyn. She got paired up with a top-dog inmate who beat her daily, yet she still went around telling everyone she was the heiress of the Sinclair family. Maria could barely keep a straight face as she peeled apples for me. "People who cling too hard to their delusions always go insane," she muttered, smirking. Marcus came out of his study just then. Sunlight poured in from the window behind him, casting him in a golden light. As I watched him standing there in the glow, I realized something. All the blood and tears I suffered in my past life, every wound, every scar, had all been dissolved by this single radiant light named Marcus Sinclair.